welcome into Texans Today. I am your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, the top players the Houston Texans could trade for this offseason. Now, the Texans have a ton of cap space. They're in the top 10 in the league going into free agency. They have draft capital as well. So those two things mixed together means the Texans could also be in on some major trades this offseason. And if I've learned anything with the Houston Texans is you can't count them out with crazy trades. Hopefully this time being on the right side of some crazy trades, unlike the DeAndre Hopkins one years ago. But if you want the Texans to make a splash this offseason, I'm looking at you, Nick Caserio. I'm looking at you, DeMeco Ryans. Listen to the people right now. See how many people like this video, how many real Texans fans want you to go out there and make it happen. I'm talking to Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans right now. Go down and see how many people like this video and tell me that you don't want to make a splash move this offseason. Hey, it's the people's want. Do it for the people. Go down and hit that like button to tell Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans that you want them to make a move this offseason. Now going into my top trade candidates for the Houston Texans, number one on my list is A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I can't lie. The reason why he's the first person put on my list, the reason why I have him in my Texans trade targets video is that I have a very reliable source that has told me within the Texans organization that if A.J. Brown does become available from the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason, the Texans would be one of the first teams knocking at their door for his services. I'm not going to reveal who it is, but somebody within the Texans organization has told me this. So that's why I got to put A.J. Brown on my list. And we look at his numbers. There's a reason why he would be a hot commodity if he was to become available in the free agent market. I mean, look at these stats from 2023. He had over 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. Last year, over 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. And his time in Tennessee, the 2 years before that, still an elite receiver. Over 800 yards in 13 games and over 1,000 yards in 14 games. He is a machine at the wide receiver position. Pairing him up on the outside with him on one side, Nico Collins on the other, Tank down in the slot would be insane. And I know for a fact the Texans, they're looking to add weapons for Stroud this offseason. They have their guy at quarterback, and everybody says your Super Bowl window starts whenever you have a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal. Well, the Texans have just that. They have an amazing quarterback, arguably a top 5, top 10 quarterback on a rookie deal. So now is the time. You go out and make a move, and you make this the best team possible to go on a Super Bowl run, which would be the first in franchise history. So the second name on my list, it's another weapon for C.J. Stroud, and that is Mike Williams of the Chargers. And I know what you're saying, Jeremy, the Chargers just gave him a deal this past offseason. Why would the Chargers want to trade Mike Williams? Well, it's because the Chargers are in cap hell. They need some relief. They need to trade away some of these bigger contracts, and Mike Williams could be one of those guys that they're looking to trade. This past year, did not play a lot, played 3 games, 19 receptions, 249 yards, and a touchdown, but he showed a ton of promise. The wide receiver out of Clemson has shown that he can be a wide receiver 1B, perhaps, so what, like the second option in an offense. So I think the same thing, pairing him with Nico Collins on the outside. He's a little bit taller than A.J. Brown, 6'4", a big body receiver, but pairing him on the outside with Nico Collins, Tank Dell in the slot, that would be dangerous. So my question for you, which this is going to be the pinned comment on today's video, which means an ad break's about to play from YouTube. It's okay. Let it roll and let me know your answer. If you could only choose one of these guys to trade for, you know, hypothetically, you're in the room with Nick Caserio and he's looking at you and he said, hey, I have an option to trade for A.J. Brown or Mike Williams. What should I do? We'll let him know. Go down and type AB for A.J. Brown or MW for Mike Williams. Who would you trade for? Now, this might surprise some people. I think I would go with Williams because I think it could cost less to trade for him rather than A.J. Brown. I know the contract situation with Williams and whatnot, but realistically, I think that Williams is the more realistic target. Now, if you're just saying, in a perfect world, which one would I choose? It would be A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown and Nico Collins would be maybe the best, and add Tank Dell, you'd have the best receiver unit in the entire NFL if that was the case, or at least top 3, top 4 if you added A.J. Brown to this already really good wide receiver room. But for everything considered, I'm going with Williams over Brown. Now, I'm going to look at some defensive trade targets. I looked on the offensive side. I was looking at some offensive linemen, but believe it or not a ton of options to trade for offensive linemen. So we're going over to the defensive side. My first target, and maybe my favorite target on this list, is Jonathan Allen, the defensive lineman from the Washington Commanders. Now, Allen has showed that he is not happy with the situation up there in the nation's capital. Talking about, postseason, or not postseason, past the Commanders' last game of the season, he said, it sucks losing. It sucks being a part of this organization, basically. So could Allen weasel his way out? Could he want out of the Commanders' dysfunction and everything he's dealt with since being drafted out of Alabama? As we look, he is one of the top young interior pass rushers in the entire NFL. This past season, 5.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and 16 games played. But you go back to 2022 and 2021, 2022, 16 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. The year prior, 9 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. This dude is a machine up the middle, and he's personally my number one target for the Houston Texans if they were going to make a trade this offseason. If you could say, Jeremy, the Texans could trade for anybody realistically, obviously, maybe not Patrick Mahomes because you have C.J. Stroud, but you could trade for anybody, maybe a Tyreek Hill or a Travis Kelce. But if there's one realistic name that I would want the Texans to go after, it is Jonathan Allen. So let me know down in the comment section, one name, one person that you want the Texans to trade for. Try to be somewhat realistic. I saw Aaron Donald being thrown out there by multiple people, but I don't know how realistic that is. Producer Coop's shaking his head saying, maybe Aaron Donald. I don't know. I thought it was a little too far-fetched, so I didn't put him in today's video. But you tell me, name one player you want the Texans to trade for this offseason. Now, coming up, little, spoiler alert, I have 2 corners the Texans could trade for this offseason. And speaking of corners, why don't you get the Texans CB1 jersey right here? Derek Stingley. Or, hey, you're like, maybe you want the color rush. Maybe you want the C.J. Stroud. Yeah. If you want any of these jerseys, Battle Red, Will Anderson, they're all available with our friends over at Fanatics. If you go to chatsports.com/Texans jersey, you can get great deals on all these Texans jerseys. All these guys going to be playing next year for your Houston Texans. All great jersey options with our friends over at Fanatics. You go to chatsports.com/Texans jersey. You can get fitted for next year. I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the comment section and the description of today's video. One more time, chatsports.com/Texans jersey to get your jersey from Fanatics today. Now, the first cornerback option that I'm looking at is Jaire Alexander, who had a weird end of the season with the Packers. You look at it, one of the last weeks of the season, got suspended for a game for going out for the coin toss without the permission of the head coach. And then you have him, this weird situation with Jaire Alexander where it seems like the Packers kind of want to move on from him. He's kind of done in Green Bay as well. So could the Texans swoop up and get a really good corner to pair with Derek Stingley? As we look at his stats over the past 4 seasons, last season, 14 pass breakups and 5 interceptions, allowing only a 59.8 completion percentage. He was on fire last year. This year, dealt with some injury issues and the suspension, like I said, had 5 pass breakups, no interceptions, and allowing his worst 66.7 completion percentage. But as we go back, the talent's there, obviously. 2021, 2020, he had great years with the Green Bay Packers. And along with him, the other cornerback option that I would look at if you're the Houston Texans is Marshawn Lattimore of the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints, kind of like the Chargers, are in somewhat of a cap hell, and Marshawn Lattimore, getting rid of him, would help the Saints kind of come out of that and be able to maneuver their roster around. Now, Marshawn Lattimore is a little bit of a bigger corner than Jaire Alexander, a little bit lengthier, and I really like his skill set matched up with Derek Stingley. I think they could both be very good in the Texans secondary. As we look at his stats over the past 4 seasons, this past year, 10 games played, 8 pass breakups, 1 interception. The only downside with Marshawn is that he's been injured. We see it. Look, 10 games this past season, 7 games the year before. He had played almost all the games in 2021 with 16 games, but 2020, 14 games played. So he's had a little bit of injury issues. But could the Texans possibly swoop in, get Marshawn Lattimore or Jaire Alexander, and pair him with Derek Stingley for a great 1-2 option at your cornerback position? So the same options, kind of the same ordeal that I gave you with the wide receivers. If you were to pick one corner for the Texans to trade for, who would it be? Would it be Jaire Alexander or would it be Marshawn Lattimore? Type JA for Jaire Alexander, ML for Marshawn Lattimore. I'm really interested to see what you have to say. Producer Coop, which one would you go with? What are you thinking? Get Lattimore? Producer Coop's going with Marshawn Lattimore. I'm 50-50 on this. This is a flip of a coin for me. Honestly, I think I might go with Lattimore as well. You might be able to get him on a decent trade from the Saints because they are trying to work with their cap. So I'm going to type in my ML. But let me know what you have to say down in the comment section. That's all for today's video. As always, follow me on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs for the latest Texans news and rumors, the dankest memes on the internet, talking a little NBA, talking a little NFL as well. So go follow me there. I'll be in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl, so follow along with my journey. I'm going to try to tweet out some of the clips that I have there, some of the interviews as well. And as always, subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/TexansTV. We are trying to get to 20K subs before the start of next season. We're halfway to 11K. So if you haven't subbed already, here's my plea to you. Give me 1 week. Go down and hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV. If you don't like it in a week, it's all good. You can unsubscribe. But give me 1 week to prove to you why we are the best Texans channel on YouTube and show you why we are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube.